Hello, this is going to be a bit dry, to put it mildly. Taxes are not the most exciting of subjects for most of us, even though they affect our prosperity, our wealth, and the quality of life in society as a whole. It's not something we want to get our heads around, which is a pity, really, because uh, things could be so much better if there were better systems in place. One of the running sources is the business rate, that's the property tax on business premises. Every so often there's a call for reform. Some people want to get rid of it. A need for constant investigations, which seems to be the case with this one, suggests there's something wrong with the system in principle. So the Treasury has announced its latest review and it's called for evidence, and it's quite a good document. It's got a list of questions, and they're not leading questions, they want answers. If you're interested and you've got a business, it might be worth your while listening through this and even submitting your own answers to the questionnaire. So here we go. The first section's about reliefs and exemptions. How well do they deliver their intended outcomes? Can they be targeted more efficiently? The need for reliefs adds complexity. It suggests that there's something fundamentally wrong with the system. It shouldn't be necessary. What evidence is there on the capitalisation of business rates into rents? There's lots of it. The enterprise owners were the classical example of this, and the government knows this. There's a study that was done on it. What role should local authorities have in determining business rates? Should they be set locally? No. Some authorities are hard up simply because of their location, places like Sunderland. So, no. Are you aware of ratepayers misusing tax reliefs? Well, this has been going on. There's some court cases recorded on this one. The businesses are described as being under repair. What are your views on how the business rates multiplier is set? Well, that's a percentage of the rental assessment, and it's changed over a period, as you can see from this diagram. A large change is disruptive. Businesses can't project ahead and do their budgets. They shouldn't change too often. How should the multiplier be set in future? Well, as I've said, a big change is disruptive, but a small change will tend to be absorbed into rents if they're on a rising trend. How should the multiplier and any supplements relate to business rates relief? Well, the relief should be phased out. They just distort the market. What are your views on introducing additional multipliers that vary by geography, property value or property type? Bad idea. The rateable value itself, which is the rental value, already reflects geographical and land use differentials. Transitional reliefs, number 10. Bad idea. The valuation should be more frequent, then they wouldn't be necessary. Valuations on a banded basis, no, they should be as precise as possible. It's not unrealistic. 12. What are your views on changing the valuation process? The best use should be made of the digital information available. There's lots of it. What are your views on the relative importance of the period between the valuation and the compilation of the list? Short as possible. People need to pay on up-to-date values, which can go down or up. 14. What are your views on changing the definition of rents? Should be market rents. 15, if you've got a view on this, say so. I haven't particularly. What are your views on the design of the transitional relief system? There shouldn't be one because the valuation should be frequent. It's realistic to do it annually now. Plant and machinery and investment. Well, obviously, if plant and machinery is subject to increased taxes, then there'll be less of it. So it should be done away with, which of course would happen if the valuations were put on site value only. Question 17. What evidence is there that the business rates treatment of plant and machinery and changes to property affects investment decisions? Well, I just thought it was self-evident. That's why they have taxes on alcohol and tobacco. It's to discourage smoking and drinking. But if you really want evidence, of course, there's the old window tax. The result of the window tax was bricked up windows, so taxation of plant and machinery will have exactly the same effect on investment in plant and machinery. 18. Are the current plant and machinery principles and regulations still relevant? How could these be updated if necessary? And what would the effect of any proposed changes be? Get rid of them. 19. What evidence is available on the potential benefits of exempting certain types of plant and machinery on a permanent or time-limited basis? Again, I don't know how evidence can be produced. It's self-evident. Get rid of them. 20. What practical challenges would the implementation of wider exemptions for plant and machinery pose, and how might these be addressed? You've got to get rid of all of them, otherwise you end up with fine lines, endless disputes, cases being taken to court. Just get rid of them. "21. How can business investment and growth best be supported through the business rates system, and how effective would business rates changes be compared to other available measures? The best way of supporting business would be to stop taxing buildings and improvements and put the assessments on site values only and make them national. Then you're not penalising buildings and improvements. Better than that, under a proper site value assessment system, the valuation is based on the assumption that the land is in use in accordance with the valid planning consent for that land. So there's a strong disincentive to owners to hold on to land and keep it vacant, which is a widespread issue at the moment. How could the business rate system support the decarbonisation of buildings? What would the likely impact of any changes be compared to any other measures, including other taxes, spending or regulatory changes? The business rate system shouldn't be used to influence that kind of a decision. The purpose of the business rate is to raise revenue efficiently without doing collateral damage, and the way to do that is to collect land value as public revenue. That's the rental value of land. Valuation, transparency and appeals. Well, obviously people should have an opportunity to appeal. It shouldn't be costly to them. What are your views on sharing information? Yes, it should be shared. The valuation system relies on collating it from as many different sources as possible. If it's put onto maps, people can easily see whether they're paying too much, and others can see whether somebody's getting away with not paying as much as they really ought to. 26. What are your views on introducing a requirement to provide the valuation office with rental information, either routinely or where changes occur? Yes, it's not unreasonable. 27. What are your views on making a register of commercial lease information publicly available? I think this is an excellent idea. Efficient markets depend on information being freely available. What are your views on introducing a requirement to notify the valuation office of changes to a property that could impact the business rates liability? Again, the answer is land value rating, so it doesn't apply. How should the current billing system be improved? It should be national. It would save local authorities a lot of money in having to run their own systems. Centralised online system linked to other business taxes. Yes, why not? People should have access to that information, and the more accurate and simpler the better. 31. What sort of support would businesses and agents expect to receive? It needs a good online system for payment by standing order. 32. What, if any, criteria should be applied in exempting certain ratepayers from online billing? I can't see why they want to, but obviously they ought to be able to pay on a paper system. Alternatives to existing business rates, capital valuation, CVT. No, capital values are volatile. The primary value of real estate is its rental. What evidence is there of the benefits that replacing business rates with a CVT would have in practice? No, it's a retrograde step. The benefit would be that it would show that the present system is penal, it punishes improvements. For example, apparently the railways have to pay more if they electrify a track. It's absurd. Can land and property be valued fairly and efficiently under a capital value system? No, capital values are volatile. They depend on interest rates, the state of the market, a variety of factors. Replacing business rates with the capital value tax, number 36. Because capital values are volatile, you could end up with an inconsistent valuation list. You could end up with changes in market circumstances during the valuation period. What are the likely implications of moving the liability for tax from tenant to landowner or property owner? That would improve stability for business tenants because they wouldn't be in a situation where they're paying a fixed or upwards only rent and then be hit with an increase in the business rate. In the long run, the incidence of the business rate falls on the landowner, but if it's not immediately payable by the landowner but by the tenant takes the hit and can end up going out of business. So it's always better if the tax is paid by whoever is the one who takes the ultimate burden. How could the government ensure effective collection from and compliance by these taxpayers? Well, it's very easy. If they don't pay, it becomes land charge, the amount due. So that's a big improvement. It also simplifies the system hugely because there are far fewer landowners than there are tenants. What lessons can be learnt from other countries that capital values are an inappropriate form of taxation? 39. What other international alternative approaches to the taxation of non-residential land and property merit consideration for England? That, in a way, is the most important question of all. There are a number of countries which use land value only systems. There are some parts of the United States. There's Singapore. There's Taiwan. There's Queensland and New South Wales in Australia, and there are some American cities. Pittsburgh, I believe, is one of them. The problem with those is that they're based on capital values. I think the British system of annual value assessment should be applied. The annual value is really the rent that tenants actually pay plus the tax that is payable. It's called gross annual value. The States of Queensland commissioned a report in 1986 by Sir Gordon Chalk, which is well worth reading. If you're going to reply, it might be worth sending them a copy or at least the link to it. It's down below. The link is to the 18-page summary of that report. It's a very well constructed document. The people who are doing the work at the Treasury ought to know about it and study it. What would be the benefits and risks of introducing an online sales tax? It's difficult. The supplier may be in another country. It's pointless in the UK as online sales companies already pay UBR on their premises. And if online suppliers are able to operate on sites of lower rental value, they shouldn't be penalised for offering a more efficient service to the public. Number 41. Which services should be subject to an online sales tax? None. What evidence is there for the effects of an online sales tax, for example, on changes in consumer behaviour or prices? Well, I don't know about evidence, but it's obvious it's going to frustrate consumers' desire to get the best value and convenience. An online sales tax will force consumers towards a preference for the less efficient and desirable method of purchase, so it leads to an overall economic loss. Forget the idea. I know it's being floated around at the moment. How would an online sales tax affect the distribution of taxation? By adding unnecessary costs and reducing efficiency, it will lead to an overall drop in GDP and eventually a reduced tax yield. Okay, so that's all the questions answered. Here's where you can download the consultation document, and here's the deadline date. And there's information there about how to return your answers to the questions.